Good morning. It's 9:30 a.m., Tuesday, August 6th, National Root Beer Float Day. It's also the first day of recreational marijuana to be sold in Ohio. I'll take the root beer float, of course. So if you'd all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start with a prayer, please. Heavenly Father, we beseech your divine guidance in this meeting. Keep us ever mindful of our obligation. Grant us, dear Lord, wisdom, tolerance, and courage that we may well serve our county and fulfill our trust.
Amen.
Amen. All right, and minutes.
Move to approve the minutes of the July 30th meeting.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hambley?
Yes. All right, and now open to public comment regarding any pending resolutions. I know we have some guests with us. Stacy Malakar for our board of DD. Director, you have the your Leadership Academy?
Yes.
Here with us. You want to introduce them since they're a special guest?
Thank you for having us. This is our second Leadership Academy class, and today we have Josh Seeley is participating, and Katie Blessing are here today. Trish Walker and Pam Wilson are on their way, so they'll be here, so they'll be able to watch the meeting and see what happens in the government. But these guys have done an incredible job. They've been working on resumes. They've been working on, right now, they're working on learning more about different types of boards and how they work, so this is very appropriate for them to be here. So we're very pleased to have them here. They're doing a great job. And yeah, any questions?
Very good.
Yeah.
But no, thank you for being here. And later on, after we're done, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer any of them. I appreciate you being here and kind of witnessing the governmental process for the county level.
Yeah, very important.
All right.
All
Very
right,
good.
thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. All right. We do have our resolutions. County Engineer's Office, Dan Becker.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I've got one resolution for your consideration today. It's authorizing change order number 1 for River Corners Road, bridge number 44 replacement.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hambley?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very
Have a good
good.
week.
Thank you. You too. Holly Murin, our Human Resources Director.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On our personal changes resolution today, we have 1 new hire at Job and Family Services, 4 rate increases, 1 in maintenance, 1 at office for older adults, 1 in transit, and 1 at county home, 1 return from leave and maintenance, and 1 resignation at county home.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hambley?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Next, our Finance Director, Brett Thomas. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have 10 resolutions for you guys today. Our first one is expenditure adjustments for the various funds. The largest one in there is for moving our 4th quarter of McDack funds for its fiscal year. Our second resolution is authorizing transfer for insurance policies. It's time to settle up in between our departments for our Corsa bill. This amount totals to $319,293.84. Our third resolution is the creation of a dog and kennel construction fund as we move forward with planning out the creation of a new and updated kennel. Our fourth resolution is the purchase of 6,600 gallons of unleaded gasoline for the engineering center. As usual, our friends at Ports Petroleum have come in with the low bid at $2.48.25 per gallon. Our fifth resolution is transfer between the transfer of inventory between offices. We have a trailer that's moving from juvenile detention over to sheriff. Our sixth resolution is declarations of excess property. A lot of stuff from EMA this time with their new building construction, or renovation, I should say. Our seventh resolution is expenses of the county engineer traveling to Columbus for a 2-day conference. eighth resolution is expenses of other county officials. We had a couple this time that were actually late additions, just so that you guys know. So we have a couple approvals on there from back in July. Our ninth resolution is our weekly bills in the amount of $1,104,410.59. And that is not our last one today, because we have an amendment to the county's travel reimbursement policy. Just some highlights on this. We've removed kind of the in-state and out-of-state wall for different amounts being paid, because those really haven't been relevant to us very much since the COVID era. We're now providing a lunch reimbursement for travel that is in excess of 6 hours, because a lot of conferences now are one day where you zip in and zip back out. We're changing around the provision of only providing dinner and breakfast for days of travel for overnight, and being a little bit more flexible with that, because we've had several departments over the past years that have been very fiscally conservative and have chosen to drive down instead, which is excellent because it saves a lot on airfare when we're taking 4 people. But then if they're driving for 4 or 5 hours, we don't want to give them only dinner. We've increased the per diem maximum to $55 per day. Receipts are now required for all travel reimbursement. We have included gratuity in that $55, so as long as the gratuity still fits in that amount, we are authorizing approval up to 20%. And then we're requiring that receipt reimbursement requests be provided within 60 days of incurring the expenses.
Makes sense.
All right.
Move to approve the 10 resolutions.
Second.
Moving second, I wanted to bring up we get a lot of, as you can see, travel expenses and so forth, and training. And the one you were talking about, the county engineer, they're going to a floodplain management conference. And I'll just say a lot of these conferences have, you always sometimes question, is it of any value? And I can tell you that one, Dan Wilhoit, years ago, they came back, and Medina County, over a decade and a half, developed what was called a higher standards for floodplain management that had a significant impact. Part of that is what's called compensatory storage, which is basically when you have a development and filling in a floodplain, you are making sure that you have also storage of that flood elsewhere. And the water has to go someplace. And you reduce the incidence of floods by making sure when you have development of floodplain that there's something going to take the capacity. So those kind of things that you kind of learn, and when you go to these conferences, immense value. And I know over the years as it's been implemented, has been very beneficial in the management of flood events, which is, some of you followed, we have much more frequent flood events in the last number of years. And this is a way to offset those increases and have significant impact on the environment, water quality, as well as management of floodplain. And this is just another example where the value of the training and coming back and developing those standards. So I just obviously want to just highlight that, because I think that's it's sometimes when you have all these expenses, you kind of wonder, are they gaining anything? And I can say, I know personally we have over the years gained quite a bit from those conferences. So, all right.
Are you going to take care of just distributing to all department heads then?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yep, that's all taken care of.
All right, roll call.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hambley?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Very good, thank you. Matt Springer, our
Hopefully
assistant.
those changes will be less controversial than the space heater policy last week. I heard some
Probably.
Yeah.
there was some loud pushback on that. So
Yeah, we have. Go ahead.
Good
Yeah.
morning. We have 4 resolutions for you to consider. The first one is for the clerk of courts for an auto title lease. This is located at 976 North Court Street. It would be a retroactive lease agreement dating back to July 1st of 2023 and would run through June 30th of 2025. The monthly lease charge would be $3,222.16. That'd be the 4th of 5 lease extension options. The second one, resolution, is also for the Medina County Clerk of Courts. They have off-site storage located at 620 East Smith Road. This would be for a 3-year lease agreement beginning August 15th of 2024, continuing through August 15th of 2027, at a monthly charge of $1,917. The third resolution for consideration is approval to proceed with an RFP, also for the Medina County Clerk of Courts and the Auto Title Bureau. We have an existing lease in place within the city of Brunswick. We're negotiating currently with that landlord, and in the event we cannot come to an agreement, we need to have a backup plan, so that's the purpose of this RFP. And then fourth and final would be the approval of a filing of an F-class temporary permit. This would be for the sale of beer during the Summer's Last Stand event located at the Medina County Fairgrounds. This was scheduled for August 24th of 2024.
Move to approve the 4 resolutions.
Second.
Moved in second, any discussion? I'll just say, yeah, I talked to the clerk of courts last week about the Brunswick, and I know you had the conversation about that. They're currently over at Town Center. Apparently, the landlord would like to have maybe a higher or better use, or certainly something that pays more. That activity with the new restaurants they have there just increased tremendously. So at this point, we'll have to see if we can't negotiate. We'll have to find another place in Brunswick, but we certainly don't want to lose Brunswick as for the clerk of courts for their office because of all the auto dealerships and so forth. We have people come from where I'll just say dealers from over the county line prefer to come to Medina County because it's where they can conduct business very swiftly and have access to. And if we were to lose that, that would certainly impact the income coming to the county clerk of courts. So hopefully we'll find some amenable space somewhere in Brunswick. So roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hambley?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. All right, department updates. Laura Toth.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have some mid-year reports to go over since it's August. Let me pass out. There's a packet for each of you there. The top page in the packet is transit costs through June 2024. In the pink column, you can see OOA has paid $96,115.20 for 8,312 rides or no-shows. We pay for seniors if they don't show for their ride because the transit bus is booked and they have a set schedule. So we pay about 58% of the cost. Transit also picks up part of that cost in the last column, and they have paid thus far $69,498.70. Transit costs are difficult for me to compare to other years, so we really don't know how ride costs and riderships as far as OOA clients, how they compare to previous years. It kind of, when the flex system started, we have to go from 2024 onward because we were paying a bulk rate for the loop system. So we weren't counting individuals who were riding the loop. So in 2023, we paid for 3,875 rides through June, but you really can't compare that to the 8,000 because, again, we didn't pay for those loop rides. So we will see what the future has to bring.
So they really weren't counting the loop rides, even though they were.
Correct. So we were paying a monthly rate,
Right,
and
yeah,
really looking at things now, we were getting a great deal from
Yes, you
transit.
were.
Yeah, this is a significant hit to your budget, yeah.
Yeah. And I just we didn't know how to budget this. We budgeted at $120,000 a year. Actually, you can see we're at $96,000. We budgeted, I'm sorry, at $140,000 for the year. So we've already talked with county administration about having to pull more out of the levy fund to be able to cover the transit costs, which looks like they'll be a little under $200,000 if things stay the same.
Got it.
The second page is Title III and Transportation Programming. Through June, we've provided 8,029 actual rides. So you can see on the first page it was 8,312. Those are the no-shows, but we just count the actual rides in our service breakdown. And 23,009 meals delivered and 4,052 congregate or voucher meals provided. Last year, through 6 months, we delivered 21,846 meals, so we're up 5% for the year as far as the home delivered meal program. The congregate meals, again, it's a funky number because last year through June, we provided 2,141, but we didn't have a voucher program because remember, that didn't start till June 5th. So that's not really a fair number. It'll be, again, we'll have to look next year at the first 6 months. And then the last page is just that same information, but it's on a chart. And it shows the meal deliveries over the past 4 years. 2021 reads very high in the first half due to our continued COVID shutdown, and meal deliveries were through the roof. We were delivering a lot of meals. 2024 is shown in orange, and overall it reads a bit higher than 23, which is the green line, and that encompasses the 5% growth that I was talking about. Any questions on that?
Does your congregate meal number in Wadsworth, that reflects the Supremo?
Correct.
So that huge increase, yes.
Yeah, and yes, in total, yes, it does. Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, I'll give an update on that. For our main farmers market, which is here in the square, as of July 27th, they have distributed 1,207 in coupons, and then $533 has been redeemed. This is trending upwards, but we really have a long way to go. If you look in the state of Ohio system, it shows over 270 seniors within Medina County receiving the $50 worth of vouchers, which would be $13,500. And again, we only have expended 1,207. So there's really, people have applied. They're in the approval process, but we really need to get people out there and spending those vouchers, as well as the square being certified to do the voucher program. Both Richardson's Farm in Lafayette Township and the Red Wagon, which is right outside in Columbia Station, they are both approved. Those are the only two that we know of besides the main farmers market on Medina Square that can accept the coupons right now. But we're still looking for farmers, and they can be used all the way through October. So we're still trying to get people to utilize. Maybe they're all waiting for the fall, apples, whatever. Okay.
Do you have a year-to-date comparison on that, where we were at this point with the old system?
Well, they didn't send us, Western Reserve typically sends us utilization, so we had given out in June all of and we had 292 packets last year. So we've given them all out. Typically in Medina, we run about 85-87% utilization, but I don't know month to month. We never got that stat.
So, but that's the target. If we were on par with prior years, by the October point, we'd be at
well over
85 to
10,000, I would hope, spent. So we'll keep working on it. I wanted to pass out the flyer. It's our last month of picnics on the patio. They continue to be very popular. We have a picnic this Friday sponsored by Falling Water, and Greg Crow is the entertainer. And then our final picnic, which is our luau, is on Friday, August 23rd, and that's sponsored by CareCorps at Willowwood with Scott Zapata as the entertainer. So it's open to the public. Anybody's welcome. I encourage you to come out and check out our picnics. They're a lot of fun. They go on rain or shine. I see there's about a 40% chance of rain, so we just move everything. I know, right? We just move everything into our dining room if that happens. But we've been very lucky thus far, so I'll knock on some wood here. Just Healthy Aging Grant Dollars. That program's coming to a close, and the amounts continue to be spent down. That grant runs through the end of September. I'll have a final report in a couple months on that. Thank you so much.
Oh, and I think this is the first time you've reported since you won that Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you.
from the Wadsworth Older
Thank you.
Adults Foundations. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You're way too young for a lifetime.
Thank
So
you.
that shows- but that shows how great you do.
I'm only hitting double nickels this year. So.
You win it more than once. I'm just
Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Laura. All right. Denise Testa, Planning Services Director.
All right, thank you. Good morning. For August, you obviously saw the meeting materials for that. We have a full chock full of agenda items. For September, we're on the downslide, I guess, a little bit. We have 3 agenda items, 2 subdivisions, and 1 text amendment. For our community development block grant. So the Lodi Bridge obviously is complete for our CDBG, so our program. The Lodi Pathway is complete, along with the splash pad. So that just, I think, was completed about a week and a half ago. The Brunswick Street project is also complete. So I visited both sites for prevailing wage interviews, and I have to say both contractors were quite accommodating to my requests. The Seville comprehensive plan rewrite is also on track to be completed this month. So we'll close out our PY22 block grant program, and then we wait to hear regarding PY24. We also, just as a reminder, on Tuesday, August 20th is our 4th zoning workshop, planning and zoning workshop. Did I say Tuesday, August 24th? I'm sorry, Tuesday, August 20th. Is our next zoning workshop, and that is site plan review to be presented with Paul Jeffers from Montville and one of the Hinckley Township zoning commission members. So we're very excited that they've agreed to do that. I will also be in attendance that night at Liverpool Township at their trustee meeting to follow up on their comprehensive plan discussions with Andy Conrad and Eric Hange from Soil and Water. And then we also, Barb Walton and I are partnering to visit all of our townships and villages to speak with them about our services and grant program. So we thought we'd tag team and go together with that. Are there any questions?
No?
I know I know you've had your handful the last couple of weeks, and there's everything going on. But I know that the prosecutor's office sent over that draft of the developers agreement.
Okay.
So I know that that's hopefully on the agenda for the next couple of weeks or this next month.
Okay.
Continue
Okay.
the
I will
discussion.
follow up with Mike about that. I haven't followed up with him, but I will.
Yeah, I know Andy,
Okay.
Andy needs to make, I think we're waiting comments from Andy to kind of proceed.
Okay.
In which case, we'll
Excellent.
also then schedule our subdivision regulations.
Right, we'll start that
subcommittee.
up again.
Yep,
Exactly.
So hopefully,
All right.
once we got that piece, we can kind of move forward.
That's right.
I know, like I said, you've had a very busy schedule.
Oh,
Yeah, the last number of
you are correct.
months, so, okay.
All right,
Very
thank
good.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Denise. John Hunter, Director of Information Technology with the Auditor's Office.
Have to adjust up. Good morning, everybody. So really two things today I want to touch on. One has to do with the Auditor of State. Back in June, they had decided to do a fraud prevention program. They're requiring every county employee, so anyone that gets a paycheck from the county, to watch a 7-minute video defining some of the things that are happening fraudulently, as a way to kind of increase transparency and increase awareness for government employees on what to look for when fraud comes out. Unfortunately, it is an ever-growing problem. So at the auditor's office, we are in charge on the back-end audit of that. So we're going to send out a letter to all of the county officials and departments on exactly how we're going to track that and what needs to be done. New employees have to have it done within 30 days of employment. And it has to reoccur every 4 years. So it came out in June. They're giving us 90 days to comply. So at the end of September, everybody has to watch the video. I've watched it. I know many other people in the county have watched it. There are some provisions we talked about with the state where it says there's individuals have to register. We can not get around, but a caveat to that is if you're going to do it as an elected official in a group setting, you just have to record who was in that group setting, and that will allow us, from an audit standpoint, to pass. So we have that going on. We will send out the letter initially, and then we'll do a follow-up to cover all the employees. Talking to the state auditors, There seems to be a tendency to be a little lenient because of how quickly this has come about. But again, we're going to try and get it done.
Right.
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
Yeah, it's not that painful.
I actually, first of all, I can commend Auditor Faber because it is important that our residents know that we're doing the best we can possibly do for them with tax
Right.
dollars. But second, I also thought the video was very user-friendly in a department where somebody would not be an expert on finances or money. It was still very understandable and very clear.
Yes.
So I thought
Yeah,
that it was good.
I think it's written at a level that can the message is conveyed to everyone, which is good. And then
Could I
yeah,
jump in on that one?
Yeah,
As I
absolutely.
understand it from the law, there actually, within the law, there is no penalty for not doing it. So when we had the conversation at the CCO directors, Board of Directors meeting with Faber when this was going through originally, he had proposed some kind of a penalty for that. They're leaving it up to the employer to actually provide that. Now, I don't think we have any provision in our own employee manual if an employee doesn't do that.
Right.
So it may be something we
I think-
ought to address and make sure that there is a consequence of not.
I would personally like us to show our residents that we are 100% in compliance.
yeah, yeah.
So I would like to make it mandatory in our employee handbook. I really would.
Yeah, so I think that's something we need to address in those departments that have adopted the employee handbook, but then follow that policy. Would that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
although there's no penalties per se,
Yeah.
it will be recorded on our audit as
Yeah,
we're
but-
non-compliant.
Yeah,
And-
but for the employees, like,
yeah,
okay.
that doesn't matter.
So
I
that's, like I
understand.
said, so
Yeah.
like I said, the discussion was rather than having law built a consequence, that actually as part of the management would be
Right.
responsible to make sure. And so
Right.
that's, I
So-
think that makes sense for us to
I think it's a great
do that.
idea, and
Yeah,
I think
okay,
we should
all
talk
right.
to Holly about updating
Okay, sure.
the
Employee manual
to
for
add
that.
it.
Okay.
Okay. And then
That'll help you do your job too.
yes, yeah, which is appreciated. And then I just want to touch base this briefly on kind of the big buzz around, which is going to be the reappraisal 2025. We've started. We have people out in the field doing work. We're adjusting some cost tables, things of that nature. We are working diligently to come up with some educational programs because it is confusing enough for people that deal with it on a daily basis, let alone the general public. And in 2025, it's going to come. The good news is Medina, every value is increasing. It's a great place to live. People want to live here. The bad news on that is that it does affect your taxes. And Medina's done a great job of utilization of the taxes. We're going to do some educational work with taxing authorities and school boards just to let them know kind of where we are. Progressively, we're making this an open process so that not everybody's surprised when they get their tax bills come 2026. So we'll be doing some informal meetings with those entities, and then we'll also do some informal stuff with the general public, and they'll be able to file complaints without having to go through the Board of Revision and the formal process. Unfortunately, counties are tied because the hands are tied because the state mandates we go out and appraise the value, and then they also mandate what the tax rates are going to be and what the increases ultimately are in the property. So everybody thinks it's all the local people that are making these decisions. Now there are criteria and events that we have to go through and get approval from the state to do it. So we're more stewards of the state in this process than determining what the values are. But
There's no doubt it's very complicated and
Yeah.
complex.
right.
Yeah.
And there's talk of relief, but again, with Columbus, they just can't seem to come to a consensus on how to make that relief happen for taxpayers.
Well, I guess the point is taxes have to be collected, and in the local government, if you want services, you have to have taxes. You have to
Right.
have and then you distribute the tax as
Right.
best you can, so yeah.
So we're working on some things to clean things up, and we're looking for consistency across the county.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
Okay.
and we'll keep everybody informed as we're finishing the
Okay.
various steps, and we're hoping to have the tentative abstract into the new executive director of the tax commission in April, and then hopefully we'll have our tentative rates sometime at the end of June.
All
If
right.
all goes well. So
Okay.
that's where we are.
All right. Very good.
Thanks,
You're
John.
welcome.
Thanks, John. Commissioners' resolution. We have a resolution appointing a representative to the Medina County Home Advisory Council. Stephanie Young has resigned as a representative on the County Home Advisory, representing the healthcare and mental health field. And just want to thank her for her period of service on that. And whereas we do have another interested, Sharon Sibilski, to represent on that board, and the commissioners would like her to serve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved in second. Just want to thank Sharon for being willing to serve on that advisory council. Roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hambley?
Yes. All right. Now open up to public comment. Okay, no public comment. We'll now open up to discussion session. I guess we'll start. We do have a resolution of support request to pursue the Clean Ohio Green Conservation Program to acquire property on Sharon Center Township. We have Western Reserve Land Conservancy. Did you want to come forward and provide us with information on that request?
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioners. My name's Andy McDowell. I'm Vice President of Field Operations for the Land Conservancy. For just those of you who aren't familiar with us, I know Colleen and Commissioner Hambley are quite familiar with us. But we're the largest land trust in Ohio. We're one of the top 10 largest in the United States. We focus on northeast and north central Ohio. We work in about 30 counties stretching from the Sandusky Bay and the islands to the PA line, and then south down to Columbiana, Jefferson, and back west towards Knox and Morrow County. So we cover a pretty big footprint. We primarily do two main things. We preserve private properties with private landowners in the form of conservation and agricultural easements, and then we also acquire land for nature preserve, park space, open green space, water quality improvement projects, and things like that. To give the commissioners just a brief update on a couple things we've done recently in the county, I know that in the last several years we've been in front of you for some farmland preservation projects, primarily over in Litchfield Township with the Swingle family. The last phase of their farmland protection project was completed earlier this spring. I think it was in March when their last phase was done. And then in the last several months, we also completed a project for the village of Westfield Center where roughly 45 acres was transferred to them. One of the last remaining bits of open space left in the village. So that was a big win. One of the things that we're seeing as a land trust working in so many counties is a lot of communities that are kind of on panic mode when it comes to preserving land. There are certain geographies and zip codes that we get more phone calls from than any other place combined. When it comes to Medina County, it's no surprise that we get the most phone calls from residents and donors and other supporters of ours when it comes to the northern border of your county, as well as the eastern border, with Sharon Center, Sharon Township being near the top of the list, quite frankly. So we engaged in a project that my colleague over here, Jason Prees, who is a native Sharon Townshipper, if that's what you want to call him, where that went on the real estate market several months ago. Jacob immediately proceeded to get in contact with the owner, and it can be very challenging for landowners to be willing to work with the Conservancy because we take so much time to raise funds. There's a long due diligence period. Anybody in government knows that grants only roll around once a year, and you have to have a long time to get all those funds in place and lock them up. So for us to have a landowner who's willing to sell that land for conservation purposes and give us that timeline needed to acquire those funds is kind of somewhat unique. Obviously, it happens here and there, but it's more challenging, especially when you get into the zip code areas that have high real estate values. And obviously, Sharon Township's no exception to high real estate values. So we entered into a purchase agreement several months ago with the seller. We're pursuing several grants for this project. Clean Ohio is one of them. The Clean Ohio grant for this region is divided up between Medina, Lorain, and Huron counties. Commissioner Hambley is very familiar with the Clean Ohio process, sitting on that committee. So we're here for a resolution of support. Nonprofits cannot acquire or apply for Clean Ohio funds on their own. They have to obtain resolutions of support from both county commissioners as well as the township trustees. A week ago or so, we were in front of the Sharon Township trustees who unanimously supported the project. Everybody in the audience there was extremely supportive of the project and came up to us afterwards and asked us a number of questions after the meeting. So this is a 63-acre property that's in Sharon Township. It's generally speaking southwest of the Sharon Circle area with relatively limited road frontage. Most of it is backland. A significant portion of it is currently agricultural land. It does have a Category 3 wetland located on the property. The overall plan is to acquire it and then do a couple-year restoration phased project where the Category 3 wetlands would be enhanced and enlarged, and then there would be pollinator and tree planting habitat taking place, as well as because the nature of the topography, the land generally goes from the south and then slopes down towards the north where the railroad tracks are, as well as towards the Category 3 wetlands that are in place. So we're going to implement kind of a terraced, staged vernal pool wetlands as it goes down towards the drainage tributary to Wolf Creek. And this is identified as an area that drains into a very critical area identified in a Wolf Creek strategic plan that identifies non-point source pollutions. We've determined that through our computer modeling, it'll remove about 500 cubic tons annually of nitrogen, about 150 cubic tons of phosphorus. So the restoration project will do a lot to enhance not only the downstream areas of Wolf Creek that's been identified in the plan as critical, but it also enhances all those floodplain aspects that Commissioner Hambley was talking about earlier. So we're here to obtain, hopefully, support from the commissioners in that regard. Like I said, we got unanimous support from the township trustees up in Sharon, as well as the constituents up in that region. So that's my spiel, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I do appreciate, as you know, I've been a longtime supporter and donor to, when it was Medina Land Conservancy.
Oh, yes.
Created it, and then familiar with your projects coming through our Natural Resources Assistance Council for the various funding. In evaluating this, the question I have now, as I understand, about 26 acres of that proposed is zoned industrial.
That's correct.
And because it goes along the, behind the current property owner, his manufacturing facilities as well as along the railroad.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's one of the areas of concern now. I know their comprehensive plan of the Sharon Township, basically this constitutes like 14% of their total industrial land that they have within the community. And so was there any discussion of the impact of taking the the tax base from that?
The township trustees didn't indicate any concern, and they realized that most of the frontage, which is the most valuable area when it comes to access to the state routes, is still going to be available, and we're only going to be acquiring a little bit to the south of
but
the
it's
current
the rail
enterprise.
access, and it's that property along there, which is...
That's true, but if somebody wanted to develop rail access to an industrial site there, that'd be a mind-numbing task. I mean, that's quite a slope going down there. There's a creek in the bottom. It drains into Wolf Creek. There'd be a tremendous amount of mitigation that would have to take place in order for that to take place. But in reality, if there's enough money poured to anything, certainly it could happen.
Right, and I guess, and that ends up being the question, we've had actually discussions with Economic Development Corporation on this, and certainly my thought is we would not take any action till we do further review of this. Certainly talk to the school districts, which would be impacted. We did we asked for an evaluation. It's called IMPLAN, which is an economic impact analysis software, Kyle White with OSU Extension, and looking at the impact of taking that amount of property out of the industrial base. And you're talking, when you look at that, at least annually in tax revenue, about $436,000 annual Medina County tax revenue that would not annually get received. 1.7 million annual local city tax revenue loss by not, and so it's kind of like the floodplain management. If you fill in a floodplain, the water has to go someplace. Same thing with taxes. Is we have I know Sharon's very sensitive to residential growth and the cost that comes, and the way to offset the cost of providing services to those residents is
commercial and industrial.
Commercial. And so I've got some concerns about the lack of discussion with those officials that are responsible for providing those services. And I know the township is just one small group.
Sure.
You've got the schools, which are probably going to be the most heavily impacted by not receiving revenues from that future growth. And so that's, I think, my interest is personally is take a look at the information and evaluate. And I know that will probably be part of the evaluation we would do at NRAC as well.
Probably.
Because you look at economic impact. And I know the presumption in the past has been that all development, when you do these conservation easements and park districts, they have a benefit, especially if it takes the place of residential development. Because residential development, as we know, has a consequence of generating more demand on services than it provides taxes. And you balance that with a good industrial and commercial base. And so my concern is you start, I'll say, undermining your tax base, and that has consequences. And I think the community certainly ought to be having some input and discussion about that.
So will you be reaching back out to the township then? Should we let them know?
As well as I think the schools would
Okay.
be another entity to have some discussions with, since they actually are most impacted. When you have that kind of annual loss in revenues, it's got to be made up someplace. Like I said, the millage, and John can testify, whenever you do it, when you got millage and you have taxes, you got to spread it out. It's voted. So in other words, if you're going to take it away from one place, you got to replace it someplace else.
Sure,
And-
but of course, your tax base you're talking about is
Yeah.
also somewhat speculative at this point. It's not there right now.
Well,
It's
no,
getting
so- but-
CAUB tax rates,
it-
which is minimal.
well,
So
it
for
just-
somebody to develop that backland,
Oh,
which would be, an undertaking to get that land
But
developed
it's
into
been-
industrial
But
piece.
it has been industrial for decades and hasn't been developed. It's like a floodplain storage area.
Waiting to happen.
You're going to get it eventually, and the same thing when you're going to. The question is what's the purpose of zoning it industrial? And I know that they, in their plan, they said they want to keep their industrial base intact. So that's why I asked the question. They have 26 acres of land that's zoned industrial, dedicated for future industrial purpose. Jeremy's here and is aware of my conversation with him. County has spent over $8.5 million in the last couple years actually providing water and sewer services to Sharon Township. That's based on projections of customers, residential as well as consumers. We've spent a lot of money. We're paying, if you will, reparations to the city of Wadsworth for taking part of their area. So the county put millions of dollars in the infrastructure to serve an area that is zoned in a certain way. So if you're going to eliminate those customers, well, that has an impact on county investments. So it gets a little bit more complicated. Like normally go, yeah, this is residential, this would be good. Limited impact actually has a positive economic benefit. My fear is something like this might have a negative one, or at least one that will increase taxes on the remaining taxpayers. So that's where I think the conversation has to be had.
Sure. What do you think your timeline? Do you think another 2 weeks come back to the agenda here?
Well, we've got the due date of is September 22nd, isn't it? 27th. So I know the due date for the certainly for the grant is 20, and then we're making the decision. I know in October. The committee will be reviewing it, so that would be certainly before then. But I think we need
You
to.
mentioned you need the letter of support both from the commissioners and the trustees, or can you
Correct.
have one or the other?
No, it has to be both.
Okay.
Typically, we go to the township
Because
first
you're
because
a
you want the
nonprofit.
local. Yeah.
Yeah, the statute, if it was a county agency, would
Correct.
require.
That's correct.
So our government entity. that
Or
was-
the township themselves. Yeah.
right. Oh yeah. Right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Any political subdivision.
Any political subdivision have the authority, and when they were having been around when it was first created
Yes.
and implemented, that was one of the policy decisions that any nonprofit would have to have a governmental entity endorsing it as part of a community plan.
Correct.
And I think that kind of lends it to that. And I don't mean to throw water
Well,
on
but-
this, but I
Understand
think
you're
it's a
doing your due
question.
diligence.
And I think
Sure.
I think it relates to a bigger, deeper policy discussion from our perspective, having to balance these things, because the policy we've got to look at is, and that's why I wanted the clarification. I appreciate you giving me that in terms of our support for the application itself. In light of the investment that's been made, in light of the zoning, and then also the potential long-term impact, you're right, it is potential long-term impact, but the tax base, once it goes into conservation easement, it essentially becomes zero at that point. So So the other side of it is nothing. I mean, even the CAUV reduced amount is higher than that.
I think that the question for me is there any way that it could be divided up? You've got the 26 acres versus the 61, and obviously you're not going to develop. There's no service going to be to those areas of the wetlands. It's not going to be serviced. Is there any way to have the property owner divide it up, the parcel, and apply for that section, which makes perfectly good sense to have a conservation easement put on it, versus taking that industrial property?
I don't know if there's time for a grant for that split, though, is there?
I don't know. Well, no, actually, you don't complete. Once you go through the ranking process, it has to go down to OPWC. The first round we had last year still hasn't closed over in Liverpool. So we know it takes some time, and so that's the question I'd have: is that enough time for you to go back to the property owner? I know Bethany has had some conversations with the property owner to go back and kind of make more sense of, yeah, this is a developable portion. This is the portion that is already zoned industrial, and this is the portion that would be fine to have that conservation put on it.
No, we can maybe engage that. That could be a challenging one, when you get, now it's even more backland, and get public access into that and so on could be a little bit more tricky, but it could be a discussion we could have. But
well, I guess what would be the plans of development? You can't do anything other than passive
correct.
Passive recreation.
Yep.
And it would be just a question of getting easements to get access to it.
Do we know the
That's why
current total annual taxes on that?
We'd have to look it up. We can get that.
yeah, and some of what we're getting is a portion of a parcel too, so we'd have to do the math and so on.
I mean, it's not. What we're talking about as it's currently constituted is not a huge
Correct.
loss to the tax base. Nobody's making that argument.
Right. Yep.
It's the potential future versus the known future of the once it becomes nonprofit is zero. So that's the other side of it. And when I say the policy issue, I think we need to look at the policy issue relative to competing with our industrial interests or the investments we make.
The question is,
I brought it up though because I think the
Yeah.
schools will want to know the
right,
number.
and I think the question is, you've got 26 acres that are zoned industrial. Are those really developable? Is the question.
Yep, that's a good question.
Indeed, I think that's the question that has to be answered. It has a value to it.
And if they
indeed,
are.
and frankly, if the township and the school district saying, okay, we really can't do anything with it, okay, that's fine. But I think it's the question that has to be asked before you start shifting over and taking it off the tax rolls.
Right.
Because right now it is under CAUV.
Yep.
They are getting it, and I know that once the property transfers to a nonprofit, we'll have no recoupment. Normally, if it was a for-profit,
No, we'd be paying recoupment.
So,
there'd be a recoupment for sure. We'd be paying recoupment.
Okay,
absolutely.
so you do?
Oh yeah, there
Okay,
has to be
all right. So
recoupment.
you do pay recoupment. All
Oh
right.
yeah.
Is
If
it
it ends up in a village or a
a
municipality
government
that
entity,
ends
then
up with it,
you'll
then
recoup.
that
Okay,
wouldn't.
got it.
Yep. Yeah,
But I
we'd have to
think-
pay recoupment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's one of our most favorite things to do.
So, but I think it begs the question is can we get enough information quick enough to be able to have you be able to present this by the time we do the end of
Yeah, I'd love
September?
to talk to the trustees.
And I think there is enough time. This is the beginning of
I think there could
August.
be enough
We have a
time,
couple
too.
weeks, but I do appreciate you bringing this just to.
Can I mention one other thing, though?
Sure, go ahead.
Yes, if it goes to a nonprofit or a government entity, either way, the
Yeah.
property taxes are zero at that point.
Correct.
But there's been study after study after study that does show that it enhances the adjacent property values. Ask any realtor, would they rather sell a property that's adjacent to park and preserve land or one that's in the middle of a subdivision?
Oh,
So certainly the values go up. There's increased tax base from the adjacent properties, and of course it creates a huge amenity for people to be desired to
Well,
live there.
I
So
don't
all
argue
that,
about the amenity.
so yeah, the property itself doesn't pay taxes,
Yeah.
but it has an ancillary effect to a lot of adjacent properties.
And I appreciate you saying that because I don't want there to be the takeaway that we're opposed to this kind of the parks and the green space and these things are all very important. I just think as we look to the future of our county, we've got finite space to pay for an ever-growing population. Yes, we want green spaces to be part of that. Absolutely. We just want to make sure the green spaces are in areas that are most appropriate for those.
Sure.
And more importantly, to my point, we want, and I think Steve's point, we want to make sure that the industrial areas are in areas that are appropriate for that. And the existing zoning goes a long way to accomplish that. And so we've got to just be a little bit mindful before supporting what ultimately is the public funds, grant funds, to come back to ultimately take away and convert those uses that have been previously zoned for that purpose. And as we look around an ever shrinking available space in the county, inventory-wise, where do we replace that to help support the tax base for schools and all the other programs that come with that growing population?
Understood.
I think the concern is, especially with the rise in valuations, is we don't want to shift even more taxes.
Oh, I
on the
know.
remaining
I'm a
tax
Lorain
base.
County resident. I
So
just got my
it's-
letter in the mail 3 weeks ago,
So
and I'm not
I
happy.
just want to be careful we're not undermining the tax base we're depending upon to offset all this residential growth.
Sure.
And
Understood.
I totally agree with the amenities and so forth, but we also have to make sure that we've maybe the communities as we go through this have to be more mindful of what do they have in terms of their future tax base, like the industrial and commercial. Is it appropriately zoned? Should they be revisiting it? Should they be looking at property and saying, okay, it's we have it zoned this way, but you're not going to develop it, then don't zone it that way.
And I think it's-
Zone it the way you want to use it.
I think it's a very different discussion if we're talking about even, twice as much acreage and it was residential.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
sure.
completely different discussion from my
Absolutely,
perspective.
100%.
But I do think we need to talk to the township trustees and
Oh,
their
yeah,
thoughts
agreed.
on it.
Oh, yeah. I just not unaware, other than the newspaper reports.
Sure.
Thought it was unanimous.
Sure.
They had these conversations, and generally, I know in prior proposals for developing that property, all the adjoining property owners were not very supportive of some of those, and so they obviously probably welcome it turning more into
Probably.
Yeah.
currently.
Yeah, it's probably what the owner thought too.
Do you end up
it's a
still
good idea.
farming it if once it gets under a conservation easement, or no?
No, with Clean Ohio, you have a certain amount of time to take it out of agricultural
Got it.
production. It
Okay.
won't stay in it.
Right.
We would have probably a couple years to keep it in production. And when you do a restoration project, generally you want it to be in beans up until that point.
Got it.
Otherwise, it becomes
Okay,
a weed
got it.
bed, of everything else you don't want. So,
Right,
So,
okay,
yeah.
very good. All right, well,
All right,
thank you so much, appreciate it.
Yep, thank
All
you
right.
guys. Thank you.
Did anybody else want to come forward? I know we've got a number of the departments that have been following some of this. Okay, if not, all right, good. All right, other departments, Jeremy, anything? Okay, Matt, I know you've got something. In Chris's absence, you're the troublemaker.
So this will be a brief one.
Okay.
So we're looking for a little bit of direction on the public bid opening that we recently held for the restroom renovation project. The bids came back and they were very competitive. They were below our architect's estimates for the base bid pretty significantly. We did have an alternate restroom, which is used primarily by the showbiz group and doesn't see a whole lot of usage otherwise. That was the alternate bid, and it did come in above architect's estimates. The two low bidders are very close to each other in terms of the price of the project, and so wanted to get a little bit of direction as far as the path you would like us to start to pursue. We would anticipate scheduling a meeting with one of those two contractors as a pre-award meeting, just to make sure the scope is fully understood before we present you with a resolution. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the proposals, but get some direction.
Well, I went up and visited the alternate bid restroom that we were talking about, and the use of, we have a lot of decisions to make before the end of the year on our ARPA money, and a lot of Stephen's capital project list is always significant, and I personally would rather take that money and put it towards one of our other projects we're thinking about.
So I know that bathrooms, or that restroom is kind of in dire shape, I guess.
It's not that it's in dire shape, it's that, no amount of money that we throw into it now is going to improve the fact that, paints and makeups and all kinds of things from scenery, whatever, get dumped into this tub there. So I think we could spend the money remodeling it, and it would still, those kind of things would still be part of the process.
Is there any possibility of sharing the cost with, I feel like a landlord in this case, and it's.
The bathroom is
easy to say.
functional, still
Okay, all right,
functional,
yeah.
and
We haven't heard any, our tenant there hasn't made any demands as it relates to updating.
Not that I'm
it, so
aware of. In
I'm
fact,
inclined to wait
we
because-
entered into a 10-year
Yeah.
agreement with them just last year.
Right.
So we're 1 year into that.
Yeah.
But certainly having a conversation about shared expenses, that's something we can pursue if that's
yeah,
what you'd like.
I was
Yeah.
considering it, and then I went up and visited it, and it was like, okay, this is how it's used. It's
Okay.
kind of more like, I don't know.
Almost like a utility room.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, exactly. And so, you know, we put all these nice finishes and whatever, and it's not used like our other restrooms are
Right,
used.
right, it's that the general public doesn't have access
Yes,
to it, and that's
yes,
for the,
yeah.
basically, the, well, I won't say exclusive, but primary use of that tent.
Yeah, it is used by others within the
Right.
building, but I think the primary usage has been the show choir, the
Yeah,
biz
yeah.
group.
Okay, I can agree that, look to use that, to not proceed with the alternate then.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, all right, okay.
Okay, we will proceed and meet with the contractor and work forward.
Okay,
Okay,
very
thank
good.
you.
All right. Colleen, anything?
No, I was glad John came up and talked about
Thank you.
the auditor bulletin.
All right,
I don't have anything additional.
okay, I don't either, we do have a request for executive session.
So I'll move that we convene an executive session to consider the compensation of a public employee.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
yes.
Hambley?
Yes, all right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.